Title: Mayote, the kingdom that fell to love. In the shadow of a blood-red moon, two kingdoms stood, divided by hatred, bound by fate. This is the story of Mayote, the unconquered, and the prophecy that doomed it to ashes. No kingdom is unconquerable, but some are doomed from within. A king chooses duty over love, a queen weeps, and a child is left to die in a forest of whispers. But the spirits have other plans. In a land carved by fire and ruled by warriors, a prophecy was born beneath a blood-red moon, one that would change everything. Step into the mystical world of Mayote the Unconquered, a kingdom forged in fire, ruled by warrior kings and protected by the spirit of a queen. But when ambition, prophecy, and love collide, a tragic tale unfolds across generations. In this four-part African folktale series, we follow the journey of Esinam, a lost princess raised by enemies, and Prince Obade, a warrior trained to destroy the kingdom she once called home. Their bond is powerful, but fate has other plans. Happy watching? Thank you. Episode 1: The Cursed Moon.
King Obadel the Unshaken, warrior king of Mayote, stood like a statue in the palace hall, his broad shoulders and skin as dark as polished mahogany bore the scars of 100 battles. His presence alone could silence a gathering of men. His voice was deep and commanding, a voice that had led armies to victory and bent rival kingdoms to his will. Tonight, twin heirs would be born, a blessing. Yet dread coiled in his chest like a serpent, Mayote was a kingdom forged in fire. Its walls, carved with the triumphs of ancestors, loomed over golden plains and forests where spirits whispered, a kingdom of warriors, a land where strength was revered, and the spirits of the ancestors were believed to walk among the living. Nestled between rolling golden plains and dense forests, it was surrounded by towering walls, carved with the images of past kings and their victories. At its heart pulsed the sacred drum, a relic of Queen Awele's sacrifice, whose magic shielded the kingdom. But now, ambition festered within. The palace at the heart of Mayote was a grand structure built from large stones, its towering walls adorned with ancient symbols representing the kingdom's spiritual beliefs. The palace gardens are lush with exotic flowers and fruit-bearing trees, with fountains in the center, their water flowing through channels made from polished stone. In the distance, the mystical drum of Mayote, said to be the source of its protection, sits in an ancient temple, surrounded by a serene yet eerie silence. Despite his formidable nature, Obadele was a man who loved deeply. His heart belonged to Queen Esimire, his first wife. She was elegance and wisdom personified, a woman of rare beauty and grace, tall and regal, with high cheekbones and eyes like the clear waters of the sacred river. Her skin was the color of warm dusk, her long braids adorned with beads of gold. She carried herself with an air of quiet dignity, beloved by the people for her wisdom and kindness. Her laughter was rare but warm, and her words carried the weight of prophecy. She was not just a queen, she was a mother to the people, a guardian of tradition, and the king's most trusted advisor. However, politics dictated that Obadele take a second wife. To secure the loyalty of his most powerful general, he wed Queen Jerioma, the general's daughter. Where Esimira was like the river, calm and deep, Jerioma was fire, untamed and consuming. She was breathtakingly beautiful, her bronze skin glowing in the sun, her long black hair often braided with golden beads. But beneath her beauty lay a heart of ambition. She knew she could never match Esimire in love, but she could surpass her in power. She did not seek to complement the king's rule as Esimire did. She sought to shape it. The moon was full and silver as it cast its glow over the palace. Incense burned thick in the air. Drums echoed through the corridors as the court awaited the birth of the royal heirs. Both queens labored in separate chambers. Their cries pierced the night, an eerie harmony of pain and fate. Then it happened. As Queen Esamire gave birth, a strange silver light flooded the palace. The full moon seemed larger than ever, pulsing with unnatural glow. The stars vanished. The wind howled through the palace like spirits whispering secrets. Then, the chief priest, an old man with hollow eyes, entered the hall, his face pale with fear. He had been in the temple, reading the stars, and what he had seen had shaken him to his core. "A child born under the moon this night," he rasped, "will bring the destruction of Mayote. A child born under the moon this night will be the ruin of Mayote," he repeated. "The walls shall crumble, the rivers shall dry, and the gods shall turn their backs. Death will walk in that child's shadow." The words sent a ripple of horror through the court. The king's brows furrowed, his fingers tightening into fists. He turned to the priest. "Which child?" The words of doom passed through the palace. The midwives looked at the newborns with shiver, their tiny bodies still slick with birth. Queen Esamire had given birth first, a daughter, wrapped in soft silk and bearing the king's noble features. Queen Jerioma had birthed a daughter shortly after. The moon's glow seemed to direct itself toward Jerioma's chamber, illuminating the face of her newborn child. But Jerioma, always cunning, saw an opportunity. She whispered to her maid to bring the chief priest to her chamber and slipped golden cowries into his palm and promises of more. "It is the first child," she urged, "the one born before mine. That is the harbinger of ruin." The priest, blinded by greed, nodded. When he rose before the court to interpret the omen, his voice was grave. "It is the child of Queen Esamire, the firstborn daughter, who will bring doom upon us all. She must be cast away, lest the kingdom falls into ruin." A murmur of fear spread through the room. The councilmen exchanged uneasy glances. Some clutched their amulets, whispering prayers to the gods. The king's face darkened. Esamire gasped, cradling her newborn daughter. "No, this cannot be." The king's heart clenched in agony, for he loved Esamire deeply, but he was a ruler first and a father second. He could not ignore a prophecy. With a heavy heart, the king turned to the priest. "What must be done?" "The child must be sacrificed," the priest declared, his voice unwavering. The words were a dagger to Esamire's heart. She held her baby tighter, her breath shallow. "No, Obadele, you cannot." The king hesitated. He had fought battles, led armies, and crushed enemies, but in this moment he found himself powerless. He looked at his wife, his love, and then at the fearful faces of his council. The kingdom would never accept the child if she remained. At last, Obadele compromised. "She will not be killed. She will be cast into the evil forest. If the gods will her to live, so be it." Esamira wept and pleaded, but her cries fell on deaf ears. She was allowed only one mercy. She wrapped her daughter in the finest silk and placed around her wrist a golden bracelet engraved with the crest of Mayote's royal house. "May the gods watch over you, my child," she whispered. The baby was taken away. And so, under the same moon that had condemned her, the first princess of Mayote was carried away into the unknown, her fate left to the hands of spirits and fate itself, her cries swallowed by the darkness. The evil forest was a place of whispered fears and dark legends, a cursed borderland between Mayote and Kisimu. Twisted trees loomed like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches tangled in the thick mist that clung to the ground. It was said that spirits roamed the forest, punishing those who dared to trespass. But on this night, something unexpected happened. A warrior, tall and broad-shouldered, rode through the mist. His name was Odiran, a soldier of Kisimu, returning from a scouting mission along the Mayote border. His sharp eyes, dark as the depths of a river, caught a strange sight: a bundle, barely visible beneath the roots of a massive tree. A faint cry echoed through the still air. He dismounted swiftly, sword drawn. Odiran approached, expecting a trap, but as he pulled back the silk wrapping, his breath caught. A child, a baby girl, barely hours old, her tiny fist curled around a golden bracelet, gleaming in the moonlight. She should have been dead. No child abandoned in the evil forest had ever survived, but she was alive, eyes wide, staring up at him, not with fear, but with uncanny recognition. Odiran was no fool. The silk, the bracelet, this child was royalty. But whose child was she? And why had she been left here? He didn't care. Despite the centuries of war between Kisimu and Mayote, he could not leave her. He wrapped her carefully, mounted his horse, and rode home. Odiran's home was in the heart of Kisimu, a land of red earth and rolling plains, where the palace rose high above the city like a mountain of stone and gold. The people of Kisimu were known for their cunning, their sharp minds as much a weapon as their swords. His wife, Imani, was waiting when he arrived, a woman of quiet strength and warm brown eyes. When she saw the child in his arms, she knew. "She is not ours," she whispered. "No," Odiran admitted, "but she is now." They named her Esinam, meaning destiny is mine. She grew up believing she was their own, unaware of the royal blood in her veins.
Under the cursed moon, the princess of Mayote was carried into the shadows, her fate abandoned to spirits and silence, until a warrior from the enemy kingdom rode through the mist. In the heart of the cursed forest, fate found her first. Who is this child? And why does her bracelet bear the mark of a fallen kingdom? Kindly subscribe and ring the bell. The next episode awaits.